Thank you very much, Arthur, for the introduction there, and welcome to the session on Greenfield's mine development. Do we have a specific sponsor for this session? MINEX. Thank you very much. Who's also presenting here today. So through our experience, we can get fantastic exposure to development of Greenfield's mines in Greenfield's areas, and I think this is a nice follow-on from the previous session there, where we had from our regulators and mining companies experience their experiences, challenges with the development of their Greenfields projects. And I think in order for a project to be developed, the key word is to be informed. To develop a project efficiently, the company needs to make informed decisions along their journey. In my experience, in consulting and in operations, finding your way is the greatest challenge. The following presentations will share their experiences covering developing mines in Macedonia all the way up to Slovakia. So I'd like to thank the replacement first speaker, Greg Jackson. Unfortunately, my colleague Hanno Byers couldn't make it. He should be here later this afternoon and hopefully presenting tomorrow. But Greg's presentation is the contractor's role on innovation, efficiency and productivity. So thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to the conference organisers for the opportunity to present this morning at very short notice. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do as a contractor. Then I'm going to talk about what the contractor's role is and the expectations around innovation. Talk a little bit about our other important partner in innovation, which is the original equipment manufacturers, or the OEM. And lastly, I'm going to give some examples of what we do in our contracting company with respect to innovation improvements. Burncut as a company was established in 1987 by three young mining engineers in Australia who thought they could make a go of it in the contracting business. Since that time we've grown to employ over 4,000 people, and in 1999 Burncut started to work outside of Australia in Africa, and as our overseas business grew we established Burncut Offshore in 2004. And we're now engaged in a number of projects, from early evaluation right through mine contracting and operation in a number of countries. While the three young mining engineers who started off Burncut knew a fair bit about mining, they weren't ready for the global share market crisis in 1987. Fortunately, a fairly savvy investor by the name of Claudio Thyssen saw an opportunity and helped the young Australian boys out by buying into their company, and Burncut then became part of the global Thyssen mining group, where a couple of the owners, or the original founders, still remain in the business, but we now operate as part of the wider Thyssen group, and we've grown to quite a substantial business now of touching on $2 billion this year in terms of turnover. So, and Burncut contributes over 70% of that, so it's still a big part of the international business. Right, the slides in front. We operate across the world, and you can see those red highlighted areas covering a fair bit of the globe. Obviously Australia is an important part of our business, it's where we started, but we've also operated right across Africa, into Peru, North and South America, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and also Thyssen-Schachbau in Germany. So we do have a true global footprint. Burncut's approach to contracting is really simple. We're there to deliver value to our clients, and we do that through strong systems, technical excellence, and a highly skilled workforce. And also, I think it's important to note that these days we need to provide a systemised approach, and particularly as people are now looking for a lot more out of the mining contractors, and typically our workforces, even in Africa, are now up to over 80% local employees. The Burncut Group is a little bit different to other contractors. We do have a wide range of businesses under the Burncut banner: shotcreting, raise drilling, mine consulting, a health and safety group, a mine services providing electrical engineering, and we have Indigenous training as well. So we are really a one-stop shop. Currently our overseas contracts are predominantly in Africa. We're operating in 4 countries in Africa, plus Saudi Arabia, and obviously still heavily weighted into Australia. The reason we're here today is that the next 5 years we see our growth, whilst Africa is still always going to be important to us. We have got a joint venture we've just set up recently in India, where we're looking to partner up with an underground coal mining group in India who want to start working in the metalliferous space. We have a joint venture in Mongolia where we're starting to do mine services work. South America, we have a joint venture there. We're looking at projects in Peru, Colombia, Ecuador and Argentina at the moment. And the new one that's come along in the last few months is Greenland. So quite looking forward to that one, to be honest. Underground mining is not for the faint-hearted. We have strong competition from owners and our peers who all believe they can do it better. Internationally, the world now requires a lot more from mining contractors. Once upon a time it was all about cost. Well, cost is still important, but now we have to deliver across the wider value chain of sustainability. And I think that's been touched on a lot today. Safety, environment, training, all those things are now very important. So as the mining companies need to evolve, so the contractor is being pushed to actually lead the way. And we often find that it's, from a company's point of view, it's easier to tell someone else what to do than do it yourself. And often we're that someone else. And we're also seeing a lot of times now smaller companies just don't have the depth and technical expertise to actually do a lot of the work themselves. And they're now quite happy to rely on contractors who can provide that extra level of service. The 4 big words we're hearing pretty much across all the world now is SSDB. Safer, smarter, deeper and bigger seems to be the mantra that's coming through. Safer, we need now to provide intrinsically safe systems. People can't be injured at work. No one wants to be injured. We certainly target 0 injury. I think we had one lost time, I know we had one lost time injury across our group last year. It's really a major driver for us. Smarter, data is now king. No longer do shift bosses walk around underground and scribble notes on pads. They carry iPads. Data is transparent. It's collected on a live basis, and decisions are made by data, not by opinion. Deeper, major capital investment decisions are being delayed, particularly around decisions around shafts and declines and trucks. And we're now seeing that many mines are getting deeper, and that's needing us to be able to be more productivity. And the other one is bigger. Mines are becoming bigger, equipment's becoming bigger, so everything now is becoming, I think, a lot more technical. A key partner with contractors are the OEMs, and we work very closely together to drive change. Contractors are pushing for higher productivities, and that's been the key to increasing capacity and production. We're often the proving grounds for the OEMs in terms of new equipment, and we speed up the overall development from concept to production. Contractors also prototype into market gaps and allow OEMs to pick up the concepts that are the most workable and turn them into product lines offered for sale to industry. It also should be noticed in some cases that contractors provide the truth test too for the OEMs in terms of what they're promising clients, in terms of what actually works and what doesn't. Sometimes it's a hard conversation, but it's normally better to get all the real experience out on the table. Unlike owners, contractors also see lots of different things. We work across many industries, and as far as the OEMs go, we work with multiple OEMs. So we're always pushing the OEMs to be competitive. We don't just buy from one supplier, we buy from the person who has the best product. So we're constantly driving the OEMs to improve. Some examples of where OEMs and contractors have got together and made some technical improvements that have really added to efficiency. For those in the room who are underground miners, what we call split feeds on jumbos. Once upon a time, if you had a single face development underground, you'd need multiple pieces of equipment to do the work. Initially, OEMs weren't overjoyed when we proposed that we should be able to use the face drilling jumbo to be able to do 3 tasks rather than 1. But eventually they came up to speed, and we developed what we call split feeds, which allows our drilling jumbos that are drilling out the tunnel rounds to also do the rock bolting, which has greatly improved the efficiency of operation. Another example of OEM engagement has really been around productivity, around the size of equipment. When I first came into mining, well, a little bit before that, when I was in mining 10 years, a big truck underground was 40 tonne. Now trucks are 65 tonne and people are talking about 80 tonne. So we've seen a 30% increase in equipment size, and that equipment's all fitted into basically the same physical space, the same tunnel size. So again, it's all part of that drive to be more productive, and it's being done between contractors and the OEMs working together. Another example is remote LHDs and automation. One of the most significant safety improvement efficiencies came with the introduction of tele-remoting into underground in the 1990s. We would have operators standing underground using a little remote control, and they'd be controlling a 15-tonne LHD. Unfortunately, that was certainly safer than someone driving the LHD out into an open stope, but we found that the technology also had some flaws, and quite a few people were actually severely injured, and there were fatalities, and people managed to run over themselves with their own equipment. So now the operator's been taken completely out of that area. We now have the operator either on the surface or in a remote hut, completely away from where the danger zone is, and now we're also seeing guidance systems that we use on a regular basis where the equipment takes itself and drives itself along, which is a lot more productive than having an operator, and it certainly has improved the overall efficiency, and that's now the norm. In Burncut we actually use 2 different OEM supplied systems and 2 aftermarket systems. So as a contractor, we're very much involved in keeping improving and making sure that the technology continues to be advanced. Some examples of what Burncut's done, particularly to improve and provide some technical solutions. Underground mining's changed a lot, and a lot of paste fill is now used in large underground mines, which is pumping basically the mill tailings in a sort of cement mix back underground to fill the voids. So part of that process is a lot of heavy-duty pipelines where you have valves that need to be turned on and off. And we've developed these remote valves which allow the whole system to be remotely controlled from the surface, where you can turn pipes on and off without operators needing to go up and manually operate valves, remove pipes. So it's provided a much more efficient system. Another example is this simple fan hanger. Underground mines use lots of ventilation fans, and typically to install those fans you have to lift them up onto the backs or the roof of the tunnel and attach them. And this usually meant that operators had to get in there and be in the line of fire, if you like, between a fairly heavy fan and potential for someone to have a crush injury. So what we've done now is come up with an automated system where we can hang one of these fans in less than 2 minutes, and it's all done from the ground with the actual loader that you're seeing there, and no person is involved in getting up there and putting themselves at risk. Another example is underground trucks. To be able to tip trucks underground, you need the room to lift up the tray, and this is obviously expensive if you want to tip fill material back into the stopes. So what we've developed is a surface feeder that we've fitted into the tray of an underground truck, which allows that truck to empty in less than 2 minutes. And it's a heavy-duty conveyor, and it's a major improvement over the OEM designs, which typically have what's called a push plate, which empties the truck. And we think that this truck's going to be a real game changer for us, and we've actually got it, our prototype in trials in an operating mine as we speak. Another big one for us has been, everyone's talked about electric and battery powered underground equipment. We've been spending a lot of money over the last couple of years developing up an actual electric truck or a hybrid truck, where it still has a diesel engine but has electric drive motors, similar to the technology that's used in open pit, but it really hasn't made its way into underground before. So we're actually trialling our new hybrid truck at this moment in Tasmania, and we're hoping by the end of this year that we can actually start building them and using them in our operation. Another example of where we assist the OEM, this is what we call a box hole rig. We need to drill small shafts, 20 metres long, about less than a metre in diameter. We needed something that could be self-driving, be able to get in and do the job and get out quickly. There was no technology on the market, so we developed our own rig. It was very successful, and we got to the point where we needed to make a decision about whether we would build more of them. But in this case, Sandvik, the OEM, or one of our OEMs, took it on and came up with a much prettier version, and we've actually purchased one already. It's working very well. We've just placed the order for a second one. So I think it's a good example where a contractor develops a concept and the OEM comes along and turns it into a saleable product. Lastly, we do a lot of shotcreting, and it's really important to us to understand just how thick that shotcrete is. So we've developed our own scanning system that we can sit on the front of the spraying unit, which allows us to give that operator that heat map there, and he can see where the shotcrete's been oversprayed or undersprayed, and it gives us a real-time ability to ensure that shotcrete's being placed at the right thickness. So in summary, I think we believe mining contractors are natural innovators. The competitive nature of our business drives us to solve problems and is supported by our management. And this support means we also are prepared to invest, and we're spending a fair bit of capital developing what we think are the solutions that help us improve the business for the client. That'll be all. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Greg. We've got Patrick Ford from MINEX Resources, the sponsor for this session.
Hi, good morning everyone. It's great to have a chance to speak to you today. I want to describe our project, the Ilivica Stuka project, to you a little bit and put a particular emphasis on the sustainable elements of the project development as we see it. For this important greenfield development, it'll be the largest greenfield mine development in the Balkans for 30 years. So very significant for the local area where we plan to build the mine and also for the country at large and actually for the region in general. Short disclaimer about forward-looking statements to keep me out of jail. So the project itself, it's a copper-gold porphyry situated in the southeast of the country. It's moderate grade, but that's very much offset by a very low strip ratio. It's a nice homogeneous ore body. What do we mean by that? Well, the grade isn't bouncing around a lot. It's, you know what you're getting year by year. And the metallurgy is well behaved as well. It's responsive to simple flotation processing to produce a nice, clean concentrate at a relatively low cost. Local infrastructure is very important. As much as what attracted us to Macedonia in terms of the geology was also the local infrastructure. It's very well developed here in terms of making logistics simple and having a good, well-educated workforce, for example. And we put in around about 5 years of development work since the current management team and executive came in 2012, culminating in a feasibility study, and I'll take you through that work now. So a few key facts. It's planned for a 2-year construction period. The actual mine life itself is 20 years, so we'll support almost a generation of work in the region. Produce on average 16,000 tonnes of copper metal a year and just over 50,000 ounces of gold, so significant producer. Initial capital investment of just over 340 million euros. That means we've got to have strong financial partners in order to build the project, and some 500 direct jobs and around about 2,700 indirect jobs. So that in itself is a huge contribution to the local economy. So we stand by clean, responsible mining and processing. What does that mean? Well, using best available technologies, and I'll take you through a few of those, to produce a copper and gold concentrate, using mechanised systems and a bit of automation, as Greg was alluding to in some of his stuff, under the control of skilled workers who we will train. We've committed recently to no cyanide usage. We had planned a CIL as a side to the plant, but we've committed in consultation with the local community and their concerns to not build that anymore, and we'll use no sulfuric acid either. The actual concentrate we produce will be transported to a smelter, most likely the Perdop smelter in Bulgaria, so that'll be processed off-site. Moving on to the geology, which is the sort of origin of the system. It's fantastic geology, to be honest. I say that as a geologist myself, having spent most of the first half of my career in exploration geology. It's about a 1.5 diameter porphyry itself. We've drilled that to a nominal spacing of 50 metres, which is a bit tighter than, say, Rio would drill this kind of porphyry, especially bearing in mind its homogeneous nature. There's over 40 kilometres of drilling gone into it, so it's pretty well defined, basically, is what all that's telling you. And as I mentioned earlier, it's good, consistent mineralisation with good grade continuity as well, which the guys operating the processing mill will like. All of that work has gone to define some 250 million tonnes, grading around 0.3 copper, 0.3 gold, pardon, and 0.2 copper. With contained gold ounces of over 2.5 million and contained copper of over 1 billion pounds. What that means in gold equivalent is around about 5 million ounces gold equivalent. So a reasonable sized deposit. In terms of the mining, one of the huge features of this deposit, which really makes it a fairly unique opportunity, is the low strip ratio. and I'll talk a bit about what that actually means. It's planned as a conventional open pit operation, around about 20 trucks and a couple of shovels split almost evenly between waste movement and ore movement. And that means we can have a relative bulk mining situation with a pretty low mining cost of around about $1.80. That histogram I'd like to draw your attention to, because people often focus on our grade, but actually that low strip ratio, this is a really good way of expressing that. If you look at the amount of metal we recover per tonne of rock moved, including the waste, we actually stand up really well against our peers globally. That's both planned operations and existing operations. And that's part of what makes Ilovica Strukka a unique project. All of those mining factors define a reserve of just shy of 200 million tonnes, so great conversion of the geological resource to a reserve at very similar grades to the resource as well, so we're not seeing significant dilution. There is no internal dilution. In fact, you only get slight edge dilution around the ore body. Okay, onto the processing, 10 million tonne a year throughput, gyratory crusher, SAG mill, twin ball mills. That brings us down to a 75 micron grind size. For the less technical of you, it feels basically like sort of talcum powder fineness. That then gets floated to a clean copper gold concentrate. Now, just to emphasize the point that we're no longer planning to use cyanide, I just left on here the bullet point about the cleaner scavenger. That was planned to go through a CIL plant. As I say, it was a minor amount of material, and the community expressed that they were not comfortable with use of cyanide on the project, so we've now taken that away. All of that gives us low processing costs of under $6 a tonne. Tailings management facility. This is a point I really like to emphasise, and that's why there's so many words on here. But what all of that stuff then means is it's a very conservative, safe design. We use the downstream construction method, entirely rock fill embankment. What does that mean? It's all rock, it's all built on rock, it never rests on top of tailings. It's a very, very stable structure, relatively shallow stopes. And what we've done is we've modelled that to in extreme seismic conditions. So the modelling of an earthquake there, it's massively bigger than the earthquake that destroyed Skopje in the 1960s. This embankment will still stand up. And we've modelled that through 600 stages of computer modelling to make sure that's the case. So in terms of seismic risk, we've really mitigated that with this design. In terms of flood risk, we can hold up to a 1 in 100 year storm behind the embankment, and then downstream we have a stormwater dam that increases our capacity to a 1 in 1,000 year storm. So again, we've mitigated the risk of stormwater. All the water held there will be reused and recycled back at the plant so that we have zero emissions into the waterways. And the actual stream that runs down that valley will be entirely diverted around the facility, so it won't come into contact with the rock at all. And the tailings themselves have been very thoroughly tested and are benign. And last but not least, we'll have a appropriate geotextile liner in that as well. So a very, very safe facility. So all of those technical parameters conspire to make this a great low-cost producer. That's fantastic for us as a company. We're building primarily a business to build a company on. And you can see, again, compared with our peers, the production costs done on a copper equivalent basis are very, very low. That means this business can withstand cycles in the metal markets, and we're here to stay. Which is an important factor for sustainability. It gives an opportunity for investors for early exposure to copper production, and you know there are not many projects, new projects coming online, The metal world is relatively bullish about copper compared to other metals at the moment, and the prime reason for that is there are not many projects coming online, and you can see from this chart, most of the new projects are way behind where we will be when we start production, which we hope we'll be able to do in 2020. It's a function of permitting permissions. So on to the more sort of sustainable elements, and we've built those on these 5 pillars. Integrity, being honest and straightforward. Responsibility, that's applying those best available technologies, including, for example, that tailings design, which I should have mentioned is about the most expensive design we could have come up with, but it was the safest and we have no compromise on that. Transparency, all our information is freely available. I don't think there are many historic projects here that have published their full EIA on their website. Ours is there for everyone to read and to look at, to study the impacts and draw their own conclusions. Engage openly. We're working very hard at the moment to engage with the community. I'm not going to deny that we've been through a difficult period, particularly with the political crisis in Macedonia. We're through that now with the new administration. We're building new relationships with them, and we're building good relationships, building on what we did before with the community. And last but not least, to try and improve lives. It is a long-term project. We're going to be a part of the community there for a long time. You don't do that if you're at loggerheads with people. You have to show an improvement in overall lives, not just for your workers either. So that fed into our environmental and social work. And the cornerstone of that was the baseline work. So at the same time as we kicked off way back in 2012 with our work leading to our pre-feasibility study, we kicked off our baseline work. We've been taking measurements over a 3 to 4 year period of all the environmental indicators, ranging from water to air, noise, landscape, etc. And on the social aspects, we've done a detailed socio-economic survey, so we understand how people win their livelihoods at the moment and what the impacts of our project will be. We've looked at archaeology, we've looked at traffic, we understand the capacity of the region and the capacity to hold our project. From that, we can say with our hands on our hearts the following important statements, and these ones are really important to our stakeholders down in the local area. There will be no negative impact on the citizens' health. There'll be no negative impact on agriculture. We can sit side by side with agriculture. We don't take any agricultural land, and in fact the water supply systems to the mine will improve water supply systems to everyone, for drinking water, for irrigation, and for industrial supply. And actually the priority of supply goes in that order. So we will come last in the food chain. There will be no shortage of water for everyone, and the new pipeline we're putting in will help reduce the current water losses from the water distribution system, which are estimated around 60 to 70% of the water is lost at the moment. It'll be a boost for the regional economy. It's not just us who are there, but the contractors we use locally who benefit, for employment, for the skilling up of people, and we'll talk a bit about that in a minute. The diversified employment, a huge issue when I speak to people in the region, is their fears for the next generation of people. People are leaving in droves, unfortunately. They don't see a big future. The farming there cannot sustain the number of jobs of the people who are coming available to work, and the brightest and best leave. By diversifying the economy, adding to that firm base of agriculture with mining and all the contracting that goes around it, we will give new opportunities for people and new reasons to stay in this lovely region. We will have a limited impact on the landscape, despite the fact that it's a large project. We've deliberately sited our facilities out of sight and as distal as we can from the local habitations. And there will be no large visual impact. There's some shots of that on our table that I'd invite you all to look at, where we've modelled that. And there will be no pollution. We can again say that hand on heart. We've done very detailed studies of the existing soils and rocks, groundwater, surface water, and we know what the impacts of our project will be. So not only are we within Macedonian limits, we are within European limits, well within them, and we know that there are no material impacts on the quality of water and air in our area. So a few key facts which direct more at the sort of economic impact. As I mentioned earlier, at 340 million euro, it will be the largest single investment in Macedonia, and the gross value-added impact will be 3% to GDP. That's really significant. Employment, again, we talked about that. The direct and indirect jobs total over 3,000. That's huge for the whole Strmica Valley area. The content of the construction that will be aimed at local contractors over that 2-year construction period, 180 million euro. And then once we're operating, from our operating costs, be it local salaries, buying reagents, the continuing construction to support the operation, that'll total over 70 million euros a year going into the local economy. And also there will be 24 million euros a year going into government coffers. And of that tax revenue, around about 3 to 4 million euros goes directly to the local municipalities. That's a massive boost to their budgets. And we firmly believe that mining can be part of an economic revival here in Macedonia. It has to be integrated, it has to be an integral part, it has to be responsible, but it can be a cornerstone. This is a bit busy slide, but what it's basically saying is that headline statement: local procurement is the key. That's not just buying stuff, that's working with the institutes, whether it's educational establishments, working with the local expertise, which has helped us all the way through this development program. We've used best practice from international institutes and consultants, but we've always worked hand in hand with local institutes. And every aspect of our design has local ownership as well as that international ownership. Working with local suppliers, working with local service providers, whether that's transport, accommodation, and of course labour. Significant benefits to the region, and a huge part of that is the training that we will provide. We just heard about some of the automation, some of the trucks and things that we use. It's more like playing a video game than driving a big truck. That's the way the plant will be operated. That requires a high level of training and skills that we'll give to people, and they can, we hope, stay with us, but also take that out into the workplace and benefit the whole area. And the jobs in mining, I think when most people think about mining jobs, Joe Public sees a guy with a hard hat and a lamp and a jackhammer, hammering away at a wall of rock. But it's incredibly diverse, from nurses to doctors to technicians, engineers, geologists, environmental scientists, administrators, accountants. The list goes on and on. And if we've looked statistically at mining operations, gold mining operations, and generally around about 90% of the workforce is local. So it doesn't mean a flood of new people coming in, particularly in an area like this, where you've got such a great local workforce to build on. And then just rounding up into our overall socio-economic development that we'll be providing outside of the operation of the mine. So there's that supporting of local communities, we're helping them. We've already done that to a certain extent where we can, and we'll continue to do so. The local procurement and employment we've covered. Improvement in infrastructure. We will close a whole loop in the whole national grid in that region. It's going to stabilise power, not only for us, but for all other industrial users in the area. Improved water supply I talked about. We'll be building our own roads as well, which is great for contractors, and we won't be driving through the villages involved. Those local skills can then be ploughed back into the community and into other industries, even agriculture. And ensuring that our workers and the local citizens are healthy. That's so important to us. That's it. I maybe just wanted to close with a comment of where we're at the moment. We are in the late stages of permitting. We're working with the government here in Macedonia to close that. But most importantly, we're working with the local community to help them understand what this project means and carry on with them hand in hand. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Patrick. I've got the right one? Yep. Okay, next is Peter Robinson from Metalford, giving an overview of his projects in Serbia.
Good morning, everyone. What I'd like to do this morning is just tell you a little bit about what Metalfare is up to in Serbia, and just give you an overview of one of our advanced exploration projects, which we hope to bring into development over the next couple of years, Chedinia, which is really our speciality in Serbia. It's a polymetallic, copper, lead, zinc, and presents its own challenges, which I will go through. Metalfare. Metalfare Group is an industrial group of companies involved in steel production, trading, mining and energy. We're about 500 strong, and we've got a strong growth business plan, particularly in relation to participating in the development of the mining sector in Serbia. Our three main areas of operation in Serbia, we've got exploration license at Chedinia, which I'm going to talk about, around the Letce mine in the centre, and up in the north in Baranja, where we're actively progressing exploration. We also have an operating coal mine in Montenegro, and we are starting the development planning of a new underground gold mine in Bulgaria, which will be brought into production over the next couple of years, and probably the first new greenfield underground mining operation in this region. Chedinia, interesting project. It's located in southwest Serbia, 10 kilometers from the Montenegro border. It's a very strong, well-populated valley system with good road access, river system, population, but fairly typical steep, high topography, difficult terrain. The Chedinia deposit we are looking at, we've identified two resources which sit separately but side by side. We've got a copper gold deposit, and we've got a lead zinc deposit, and the plan is to access both of these deposits from a single underground mining operation. We have also got about 100 kilometers of exploration license with a lot of potential, so we are hopeful that we will find other discoveries, and this we will expand mining in the Chedinia region. The background is again very typical of many Yugoslav Balkan deposits. That Chedinia was first discovered in the 1960s by the Yugoslavs state exploration. At that time, it was drilled, and most significantly, there were 8 2x2 exploration adits drilled, which gave a lot of valuable information. 2016, there was some confirmation drilling, which again we found is typical of the areas we're operating in Serbia, that more often than not we prove the old Yugoslav exploration data as being good and strong, and we've done that again here in Chedinia. And in the moment now we are progressing, updating the reserve statement and mining through the Serbian mining system, which will give us a baseline of how we take the project forward. Chedinia is located in the limb shear zone, and There's some geological information, but as a true mining engineer, don't ask me too many questions on this slide. The mineralization is in limestone carbonate replacement. It's a skarn-type deposit. Volcanics, vein-like, massive, and forms of stockwork. The mining resource statement, which we're currently confirming, that originates back to 1987, what we have got is about 2 million tons in the copper deposit, which is a fairly typical oxide sulfide deposit with no clear boundaries, but we've got strong grades. We're looking at 1.6, 1.3% copper with a gold credit. Next door at Christina, we've got a zinc and lead sulfide and oxides again, and we've got some fairly reasonable grades for a polymetallic, particularly in the zinc. Overall, this is a medium, small size deposit, typical of the Serbian region. We're expecting to have about 2 million tons in the copper ore body and about 1.5 million tons in the lead zinc. So it is small scale polymetallic underground mining. How do we go about that? Well, we're going to complete the feasibility study over the next 12 to 18 months, and we're looking at 2 phases of underground mining. First, we're going to go into the copper ore body, and then we'll progress into the lead zinc ore body. And the configuration of the resources, it will be small scale trackless mining from a series of sub-levels. Again, we need further rock mechanics information because we're expecting unpredictable and difficult host rock conditions where there's a lot of faulting and dissemination, so we expect to be backfilling paste fill into the stopes. Production target, again, is looking at the medium scale model of somewhere around 250,000 tons of run of mine ore a year. But we've got the grades to support that. Processing. Interestingly, we said earlier that site facilities are not seen as a critical factor. Here, because of the very steep topography and the well-populated valley system with a strong river system, I'd probably beg to differ. Our site facilities here are going to be a challenge. And one of the areas we're looking at is again taking a leaf out of probably some of the older European economies, is looking at land rehabilitation, regeneration. And we have in the valley an old redundant smelter, which was a dirty facility, and our intention is to utilize that, reclaim that old smelting facility, and then use that for processing the ore in the valley in an established location with the right infrastructure and protection. That has been used successfully elsewhere, particularly in West Germany, but what we will have is we will have no wet tailings. We will have to process our tailings and then almost certainly be taking them back to the mine in some form of a paste fill, and it will be an industrial operation in a reasonably mature populated area. We're also going to have to look in terms of the processing of the metallurgy quite closely, because we've got both a oxide and sulfide copper, so we'll have to look at sulfidization of the oxide so that we can process the combined ore together, and then we'll have to look at parallel modular plant for being able to deal with the lead zinc. So where do we go next? I think this picture summarizes the environment we're working in. Difficult terrain. One of our challenges is we now have to drill a further closer pattern to confirm the resource statement in both of the 2 ore bodies. Can we do that by conventional drilling. Very tough. Getting the roads and drill platforms in the right location to drill these deposits is a challenge. We also have very difficult land ownership issues, which adds a further constraint. So we've got to look laterally at what we do. We're going to take a leaf out of what we call in the UK, where I also operate an underground mine in the Lake District of Derbyshire, where they've been underground lead mining probably since the 1600s, and we are now mining through a lot of the old man lead workings, and you can learn a lot from the old man. And when you go back into the old Yugoslav days, I'm not surprised that they did less drilling and more exploration adits in this topography. So looking at a value engineering exercise, we now believe, rather than a very long and expensive and environmentally obstructive, because the roads and drill platforms will not be easy, we're not going to do that. We're going to develop about 2 kilometers of underground drivage into both ore bodies, and we're going to explore them from within. The advantage of this is it will give us clearly the geological information we need to develop the resource statements. It will also give us the bulk samples for the mineralogy and metallurgical test work, particularly when we have to look at a combined processing strategy for the oxide and sulfide ore, and we will also get valuable rock mechanics information from the tunnels in terms of designing support systems, both within the stopes and within the host rock tunnels. This is the plan of the exploration, the modern exploration tunnels that we intend to develop. Again, it will be classic underground drivage. We'll establish a portal layout, and we'll use a small fleet of trackless equipment, where, as we would be doing in an underground production situation. The big advantage of doing that is, when we look at the value engineering, yes, it gives us the information we need. Yes, we can control time, we can do it over 2 years, but the big advantage is we will convert these exploration tunnels, once we're finished with them, into production tunnels in the mine. Because once we start production, we will need these tunnel accesses exactly where we're going to put them. And that is why it works on a value engineering basis. The risk factor is clearly we will be spending money on underground drivage before we've fully proven the resource. But when you look then at the marginal difference in cost between a lot of very expensive drill holes, roads, platforms, which again have no long-term value but a restoration liability, I can see why they did so many exploration drives back in the 60s. And again, we can get access to the vital information we need on mineralogy and metallurgy, because often at this stage of these types of polymetallic projects, there is an overemphasis on the resource. The resource is important. We need to understand the resource, we need a resource statement, but we also need to understand the mineralogy, and we need to understand the metallurgy of how we're going to process it. And by doing this, it will give us access to bulk samples from within the deposit that we wouldn't get as easily by drilling. Feasibility data to be collected, summarizing it, we need information for rock mechanics, for support system design, we need to understand the stope design so that we can minimize dilution and safety. We need to understand the groundwater and the hydrology. Again, that will give us access, the tunnels will give us access to this information. And then the other factors that we'll bring into account is clearly power. We've got good access to power, that's the easy bit, but we want to, as we do with all projects, look at the ability to use renewables, ventilation, and modelling design we can do more effectively from the exploration tunnels, etc. So, in conclusion, what we have is a small but a good quality copper, lead, zinc resource. We have a 1 in front of our copper grades. I like having a 1 in front of copper grades, particularly if you're underground mining on a small scale. Once we have completed the exploration and the feasibility studies with the tunnels, which will be well supported, that gives us a significant advantage in developing the mine. We already will have a year's worth of tunnel development under our belt that we can convert and use for production. This mine will be a small-scale trackless mining operation because it lends itself to that. I certainly agree totally with the automation and going large-scale and going deeper, but of course not all the ore bodies that we want to develop allow us to do that. Chidinya is one where it will be done on a small-scale trackless mining, but equally that equipment is being developed, and that is available, and we can operate on a cost-effective basis on a smaller scale. And we will be again using a brownfield iron smelter in the valley for processing the ore. So from an environmental impact viewpoint, we will do no surface damage through drilling or anything else. We will look to take our waste underground, and there will be no tailings dams, and there will be no processing plant on a greenfield site. It will be reuse of existing sites. This will be a challenging project. We hope we've got a year's worth of detailed exploration planning ahead of us, but we think that in these challenging circumstances we have at Chidinya, that this is the way we hope to take it forward, and will demonstrate that this approach should be allow us to successfully develop some of the more challenging polymetallic deposits in Serbia, where the surrounding land and communities don't make it easy. Thank you.
Macedonian exploration of reservoir minerals, subsidiary of the Neptune Group in Macedonia.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lady Ambassador, colleagues, dear colleagues, it is a pleasure for me and quite a challenge to take a part of this forum today, especially when hearing the previous presentations of lots of money spent, of big, huge resources, of deposits, and we are still in the very early greenfield stage of exploration. As being part of NEFSN, at the beginning I would like to say a few words about NEFSN's activities and why NEFSN came here to Macedonia, and they are still here in Macedonia. Mostly it is all the operation and activities of NEFSN are located in Africa, Serbia, and here in Macedonia. In Africa, in Eritrea, NEFSN has their operating Bisha mine, where it is 60% owned by NEFSN and 40% owned by the state of Eritrea, and that is actually a partnership project. In Serbia, as the Lady Ambassador said, last Monday we had an opportunity to be present to a very, very nice event, which was starting the constructing of entrance to the one of the maybe biggest deposits or biggest mines in the world, maybe at the moment. And it is a copper gold deposit, Čukaru-Peki, which is divided into two, into higher zone and lower zone, and the higher zone is a 100% owned by Nefsan, and the lower zone is in joint venture with Freeport, where 60% of Nefsan's and 40% of Freeport. And also in Serbia there are other numerous exploration projects that are in different stages, but all very hopefully leading to new discoveries. So if we go to the south, we are coming to Macedonia. Why Nefsan in Macedonia? Well, all the geology and all the metallurgy of historical exploration done all appointed that Macedonia is very highly favorable for base and precious metals. So that is one of the reasons. The other reason is that there already have been, and there is, an active mining industry. For example, Bucem and Sasa, copper and lead zinc mining industry. Then new, lately, discovery successes leading to new developments, hopefully, starting from the north, from Plavica through Kadica, through Ilovica and Kazindol, in metals. I'm talking only about metals, with regards to metals, sorry. And also really highly qualified Macedonian technical expertise in the exploration and in the mining industry, because we have decades of experience both in exploration and mining here in Macedonia. And with regards to the Macedonian jurisdiction, Nefsan considered that it is a very jurisdictive friendly environment with laws that can be and that are implemented. So the situation and atmosphere to be positive for Nefsan to come and stay here in Macedonia. Nefsan in Macedonia is here since 2013. We have established two companies, two local subsidiaries, 100% owned by Nefsan. And we have been, I'm very proud to say, we have been successful into the tendering processes that were run by the government, and we have been granted two concessions for detailed geological exploration. One is Koinsko at the Kozhov mountain to the south of the country, and the other is Dvorište in the eastern part of the country. And also, I'm very proud to say that we are pioneers in the prospecting concession granting. Upon the new changings of the law for mineral resources, when implementing that prospecting exploration can be done under concessioning, we have been granted again through the tendering process, through the public bidding. We have been granted two concessions for prospecting exploration at this Macedonia so-called Area 1 and Area 2. And those concessions were active for 2 years, which is according to the law, and we have, I'll get to that a bit later. The first concession that we were granted back in 2013 was Koinsko exploration concession. We have undertaken all greenfield projects. We have undertaken regional stream sediment sampling, soil sampling in the already identified target zones, then rock chip sampling all over the concession area, geological mapping, ground geophysics, again in the identified target zones upon the stream and soil sampling. Of the ground geophysics, we have done magnetometry and IP and resistivity, and we have commenced with diamond drilling. Unfortunately, the concession was granted only for the period of 4 years, so we couldn't, why I said we have commenced. We have really only commenced the drilling. We didn't have enough time to complete the full drilling program, so it is still in the process of re-granting or granting the concession upon its expiring, which is, again, according to the law. All the work that we have undertaken, everything was done applying all the standards as Macedonian, as Canadian, as all international EU standards, with regards to safety, with regards to environmental issues, and again, what I have completely forgot to say, I apologize. At the beginning, upon signing the contract, the first thing what we did was we went to the local municipality to present ourselves, to tell them what we were going to do, and we were very much welcomed back then in 2013. We hope that situation will continue. Currently, yes, we do have some problems. Currently, the unfortunate atmosphere in mining considers us, although dealing only with exploration, as being definitely part of the mining world, which we are. But hopefully that will change. Hopefully the locals will see that we are not doing any harm to anybody, neither to the nature nor to people. So these exploration results, as I said, we didn't have the opportunity or time, better said time, to complete our researches, exploration. So it is still an early stage exploration project that requires further work to be done. The other concession for detail, the other project, which is concession for detailed exploration granted by the government, is in Borište. It is still active. We are still working there, and there we have started also from the absolute greenfield, because there were no actual historical serious exploration done. So we have started with the regional stream sediment sampling that gave us results and some idea of the target there, on which we based the soil sampling program, and we've done it. Along the years, we've done rock chip sampling and petrographic studies of some of the rock chips. Then we've done geological mapping, we've done ground geophysics, again magnetometry and IP and resistivity, and we've definitely all the work done in accordance with all applicable regulations and laws and standards, of course, as local, as Canadian, as European. So geological mapping and geochemical sampling identified early stage exploration target for porphyry copper mineralization. Geological mapping gave us the indication, the proofs actually, of polyphase desert porphyry intrusion associated with copper sulfide mineralization. We are currently in the stage of defined drilling target zones and locations, and in the process of trying to find a contractor for drilling that will definitely be not in any way environmental, that will not have any impact to the environment, because the environment is high forest, so we don't want to do anything to make a negative impact to the environment. So exploration is definitely continuing there. With regards to the prospecting areas, as I said, Area 1 East and Area Southeast or 2, we have regionally covered both of these areas with, as you can see on the map, with the black and stream sediment sampling. On the base of which results we have done follow-up work of rock chip sampling, soil sampling, geological mapping of known from the metallurgy earlier historical metallurgy map, and new discoveries, new results, positive results of the black sampling. We've also identified several areas of interest for further exploration, actually to be identified as areas for detailed geological exploration. And we have completed the final reports, all in the frame of 2-year work. We have completed that, we have submitted to the government, and we have applied for several exploration concessions. Nevsun is developing Europe's newest copper mine, as I've referred to at the beginning of my presentation, in Serbia, Timok project under Rakita, that is Čukaru Peki. And Nevsun believes that diligent mineral exploration in the country will definitely identify new metallic mineral deposits. And we are definitely looking forward to advancing our exploration projects as a long-term investment in Macedonia. We are looking forward to applying our expertise and working with Macedonian government, consultants, contractors and professors, the academia, to develop the next major copper mine in the region. Hopefully. So, thank you very much for your attention.
Next and last speaker for this session is Marianne Urban, who will give us an overview of Prospect's exploration activities.
Ladies and gentlemen, MINEX organizers, Macedonian hosts, thank you for the opportunity to say a few words and show a few slides about our exploration efforts in Slovakia, which is located in the western edge of the Tethyan Belt in a Carpathian Arc. Talking about the greenfields this morning, this is more of a brownfield area with a long mining history, with recorded production of over 2.4 million ounces of gold and over 120 million ounces of silver, dated back to medieval times. Our key tenures are surrounding the small-scale operating gold mine. We have a data for more than 80 several prospects or deposits, silver gold deposits over the 170 square kilometers area. Slovakia, as you all know, is located in the European Union and part of the Eurozone. In the past, it had got a very fertile mining history. It was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, with considered to be a treasury of the empire. How we get the projects? We got the projects, we inherited the projects from the previous company, which refocused to another development in Europe. And the project was inherited with the people, data sets and everything, so it was a quick start. And the key point which should be mentioned in our approach here is we work from known to unknown, or as the old timers or old miners used to say, find the ore next to the ore. This is just a general picture of a Tethyan belt with a location on the left upper corner of Slovakia, Carpathian Arc, with a famous gold-silver deposits of Banska Štiavnica and Kremnica. Bit of a closer look to Slovakia and our projects. You can see exploration licenses in the central Slovakia. The yellow parts are granted licenses, mostly covering the central Slovakian volcanic field, which is a Neogene age. We have a further east some gold, antimony and tungsten exploration licenses, plus some applications further east. Few words about the investor or the corporate summary. Prospect Limited is an Australian-based private unlisted company with a current enterprise value of around 10 million Australian dollars. The many shareholders are Australians. Largest investment group is from Indonesia, Robust Grosses, we are Salem Group, and we have a few European investors, but we are also looking for more European investors. This is our board and management team, all with decades of experience in the mining sector. And plus we have a local team, including myself and my colleagues who are the Slovaks, and we are basically running the projects with input and expertise from overseas. Few words about the key projects we inherited. The one called Hodruša Hamre is the big volcanic caldera with the long mining history, over 1,000 years mining history. The central part, basically this part is a governmental lease, which is currently not operating, and this little part is a modern 20-year-old production gold mine in production, quite profitable, with a high-grade gold system being mined, and still have got reserves for next coming years. All these red lines are representing known vein systems, in fact deposits which have been partly explored and mined in past times, and yellow triangles represent our prospects which we evaluate and rank amongst each other. This is how we basically operate in this brownfield. Sometimes in a greenfield area you have a problem with a lack of information, while here we have a problem with too much information. So you have to somehow distinguish and rank the prospects amongst each other. So basically we start with the data collation. There is quite extensive mining archives, including historical maps, geological survey reports. We're working with the universities to get data together in a modern way, to creating 3D models. Then, of course, we do field work, sampling both inaccessible undergrounds, surface outcrops, plus old mullocks or waste dumps. And then, if all be proven well, we are ranking them upper into a drilling stage and higher up in the results. On the right-hand side, you can see the series of prospects which we are working on. The red ones are those which are under the evaluation now, which is Rudno and Šepfer. And this is the Šepfer case. It's a 2 to 3 kilometer long epithermal silver-rich vein, intensively mined over several hundred years, but has stopped after the Second World War because there was the communist or ruling party at the time decided or communist regime decided to stop mining the precious metals and switch completely to base metals. So this mine was abandoned with plenty of ore remnant in situ, and we have investigated this, and we believe there is a significant resource to be proven and to be exploited in the future. By recent drilling, both underground and surface, we proved the grades, which are ranging around 2 grams per ton gold and 200 grams per ton silver. And we are in a evaluation of a first part of the vein system in turning into a resource. We are still in the same license, the Central Volcanic Caldera Field, where we have an additional prospect recently discovered with a high gold and silver numbers, reaching up to 47 grams per ton gold from the old Malak, and it's along the strike from the current operating gold mine. The current operating gold mine is a small-scale, 40,000 ton a year mine, but highly profitable with a mill feed about 15 grams per ton. So there is quite significant potential further up to northeast. Again, another project in the pipeline of evaluation. We have again some past mining activity with the mining stopped due to groundwater, and they couldn't. The old timers couldn't proceed further deep due to groundwater. So we are planning to drill test this area soon. By sampling both underground and Malaks, we proved there is an economic grade, as you can see, 8.6 grams per ton average, over 460 grams per ton silver. So hopefully this will be drilled soon. The western flank of a volcanic caldera, we have 3 exploration licenses covering the vein systems. The first one called Nova Banja, which in translation means new mine. It's again historical mine where the old timers stopped due to groundwater. In 2016 we discovered a feeder zone which was quite low on precious metals, but we believe higher up in the system the gold silver grades will increase significantly. So we are about to drill it soon and prove it. Rudno, again, Rudno means ore. It's a pegged ground last year. We are in a drilling process now. We designed a few drill holes which we are verifying the rock chip numbers which we collected both underground and surface. And the Pukan is this fairly new area, pegged area with again historical production. What historical means medieval. Further east in the country, we have a greenfield project. There was no mining activity in the past, but it has been quite extensive governmental exploration in the 80s with a calculated resource on tungsten, a bit of an antimony, and a limited gold credit. A limited gold credit means that there wasn't much interest on gold at that time. So there are just few gold assays with some interesting grades, and we are about to prove the gold grades and increase the economic importance of this system. Another project which we granted further east in Slovakia, it's not granted, it's under application process now, but we believe within a week we will get the license granted. Again, some interesting gold antimony numbers with a copper and silver lead credits as well. When we get the license, obviously towards the end of the year, and next year we will be doing exploration activities there. How we operate in drilling stage, the country is fairly hilly, but with a dense network of forest roads, so we have no problem to access the drill positions. Plus we have an ability to access undergrounds. Obviously the safety comes first, So if it's safe, we can drill underground and save significantly the exploration costs. Okay. So maybe this is just a summary. We work in a known deposits with a significant upside. Again, I mentioned plenty of prospects. We have good infrastructure. Slovakia has got a mining exploration friendly jurisdiction, and this is just a short plan. This is just a 2018 timeline. What we are basically doing. As I mentioned, we are in the drilling stage now, finishing the drilling campaign, preparing another drill program for the rest of the year and towards the next year, and doing the initial resource estimate in a vein, Schöpfer vein, which I mentioned. And we are also preparing the financing, maybe an IPO, or maybe we stay private. That's all what I wanted to talk about today, and thank you for the attention.